This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, Senator Scott Martin, who chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee, joins me for a number of important topics. But first, a couple of the state's leading reporters. Should the William Penn statue be removed? And how about the Capitol renovations? All of that and more back after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back. Well, Angela Couloumbis with Spotlight PA and Jen Murphy. She's the Capitol reporter for PennLive Patriot News, two journalists who are frequently on the program. All right, Angela, I have to start with you. Who would have thought we'd have a discussion about removing the William Penn statue down in the city of Philadelphia? What's all of that? What's that about?
Well, it started late last week. The National Park Service put out a press release very quietly saying that they were planning to do some renovations over at Welcome Park in Philadelphia. It's a few blocks away from Independence Mall and, big historical site. And there is a statue there of William Penn. It is the location of his house, which is no longer there, but that is where the Welcome Park is. And in this press release, the National Park Service basically said as part of this renovation, they were trying to make the area more inclusive to include history of, Native Americans and such. And then in the final sentence it said, and as part of that, we're going to be removing the William Penn statue. And that blew up very quickly.
I can understand why.
Conservative talk show hosts, both on television and radio, got a hold of it. Then Pennsylvania Republican lawmakers started weighing in and effectively calling it an example of extreme wokeism. And suffice it to say, by midweek, the controversy had ended. The National Park Service put out another press release saying that it is effectively rescinding that plan and it is going to relook at how to remodel it.
And Jan, you can have diversity, and still keep the statue, can't you? It's not an either-or proposition.
Right. You would think that, and I think that. Everybody stepped back and said, "Whoa!" And Governor Shapiro, he weighed in, saying, he made calls to the Park Service. The Park Service, their rationale was that this was a preliminary plan that didn't get the internal review what that was necessary, and it got out before it. Really should have.
But it created quite a stir, didn't it?
It did, and it sort of opened up, again, kind of discussion of, William Penn's history and his place in history. And that's, a topic for another show because it is definitely a lengthy one. But suffice it to say, the controversy has ended. Yeah.
All right. Here we go. The Capitol building, is the ceiling falling down, and then you got a stairway? What's going to happen with how we get up and down into the Capitol? Take it, Jan.
Well, our historic Capitol is showing its age, and so in the we have a couple projects going on right now. In the House chamber, there was a water leak discovered last Christmas, and it's taken a year now for them to finally move on making the repairs, which is causing the House not to come into session until March, and that's caused a stir, people thinking that lawmakers are being lazy and all that. And along with that project, there's another project right now that has scaffolding filling up the East Wing rotunda, and that's to fix a unit.
So is the ceiling going to fall down? Is that the point?
No, it just has a leak.
Leaks.
And there's there's historic murals that are in the House chamber. They don't want them ruined, of course. And apparently this water leak was kind of serious. There was a pipe that burst and all that. So it needs repaired in the House chamber. But the big story this week is the Department of General Services announced that they are going to be demolishing the escalator in the East Wing, which anybody who's gone to the Capitol, most
And I've
likely
been there many times,
you've
up and
seen
down
it.
that. Of course,
Yep.
I walk up and down it, right?
Yeah, you have to walk up and down it because it's
Yeah,
often
it
broken and
doesn't
not
often-
working.
It's not working.
And that
It's going to go?
It's going to go and be replaced with regular steps, and a group elevator is going to allow for the ADA,
Yeah.
access
Yeah.
to get to the first floor of the Capitol. But
What do you think?
I mean, it has been the butt of so many jokes in the state capitol, these Capitol escalators. It even has its own mock Twitter, or excuse me, formerly known as Twitter, X handle.
X. I still
because-
call it Twitter. That's all right.
Most of us
X.
do. We have to correct ourselves constantly. But yes, it is really for insiders. It provides great delight to see it when it's working, and great fun to make fun of it when it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about student teachers. Should they be paid? By the way, I student taught at Millersville, then State College. I didn't get paid. We'll take up that subject and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Well, there are topics that we've done over the years on this program. I never thought we would take up the topic student teaching stipends. Should student teachers be paid? Sam Murphy, you're smiling about that. That's one of the stories you've written about. Go ahead, take it.
Well, I can tell that you're still bitter about your student-teacher experience being unpaid, but there's a law passed in December that will launch a student-teacher stipend program in the fall, and it will provide up to $15,000 stipends during the student-teacher semester, and it will be open. It's funded with $10 million, and I think the legislators know that it's possible. And actually, the whole point of this program is to help address our teacher shortage problem in Pennsylvania.
Right. And that's a serious problem.
It is a serious problem. And I think that they're kind of watching to see how many student teachers apply for this stipend, because I think they're more than willing to put more money into it if, in fact, the demand exceeds the $10 million. But basically, the students who accept a stipend have to commit to teaching at least 3 years in Pennsylvania. They have to have a minimum grade point average of 3.0, and have their criminal background and child abuse clearances and that kind of thing. But this is all just to address this problem.
Now, has this been resolved? Is this a decided issue?
Oh, yeah. This was signed into law in December.
Okay,
so
that's what I thought.
Definite.
So that's a done deal.
Right.
Has there been a lot of activity around it in the legislature, or is it?
There has been a lot of discussion in the last year about teacher shortages, not just in Pennsylvania. It's a national problem, particularly in our post-COVID world. As many teachers, we saw a lot of retirements after the initial shutdown, and it's been very difficult to get teachers back into public schools, and there's been legislation to increase it, minimum pay. And
I must tell you, when I did this more years ago than I'm going to admit to, we didn't even think about being paid for it, and it's a very important and very personal experience for people who go through it.
And well, that's what some of the student teachers now are doing. Their student teaching, and then they have 1 or 2 part-time jobs to help pay their bills, while they're doing their student teaching. And they said, it's just, that's what they said. You try to do that, and considering that the grade you get in your student teaching experience is going to help you secure a permanent job once you're out of college. So it is a critical time in the whole,
And the issue is now resolved completely.
Yep, it's going to start
This particular one, yes.
this particular one. Well, look, I want to thank you for coming on the program. All right, coming up, Senator Scott Martin. He chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee. We have some important topics to chat about with him, and we'll see you after the break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back. Well, Scott Martin, Senator Scott Martin, who chairs the Senate Appropriation Committee, joins me. All right, Senator, I want to talk about something that I know you have been following closely, and that's human trafficking. First of all, what is it, and where is it taking place? What is significant about it now?
Well, unfortunately, there are untold number of kids that go missing every year, and at any given time, 60,000 or so are still missing. A lot of people might equate that because they hear it on the national news that there's a lot of human trafficking coming over our southern border. But the reality is that human trafficking is going on in every community across this country, including in Pennsylvania, including my home in Lancaster County, along the hotel strip on Route 30. And it's really something that we have to keep combating against. And so we're doing a lot of work. This is actually Human Trafficking Awareness Month. This past week was the National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Right. And, what we're also trying to do, we actually have a bill that would provide every kindergartner in Pennsylvania, their family, with a child ID kit to hopefully help law enforcement if a child does get abducted, is missing. That they
Are these professionals who are doing this?
Oh, absolutely. Law enforcement utilizes them. Or you mean professionals in terms of the traffickers?
Trafficking.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The same element of folks that are engaged in the trafficking of illegal firearms, in the trafficking of fentanyl and other illegal drugs, are also in the businesses of trafficking young kids. And it's deplorable, and it's something that as a community we should stand against.
And is there any sense about, and you think it's going up, it's staying the same, it's going down? What's your general sense about it?
Well, I can't give you a feel as to whether it's going up or down. It certainly feels like it's been going up, especially with what's been going on at our southern border, and a lot of children are being smuggled across it. I will tell you, though, that the resources that are being put in place have been tremendous. We're starting to treat these victims not that they are prostitutes, that they're actually victims of the entities that are trying to pimp them to people out in our community. So there's even nonprofits out there that raise money to help support them, get them counseling, help them break away from them, even to the point of removing tattoos that they were basically branded with to know which pimp they belong to. So a serious issue that everyone should be standing strong against.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot of folks who just think it's a big city thing, but it's not just a big city thing. It's in rural Pennsylvania as well.
Oh, it's all over. Years ago they did a big expose on one of the big child trafficking things were occurring in the week leading up to the Super Bowl. In the city that was hosting it. But they're doing a lot of work on pushing out information to people like truck drivers at truck stops who many times will come across these young people or the people who are trafficking them. So we're making inroads, and that's definitely a positive on a serious issue like this.
All right, let's talk about energy. Here we are, we're in the midst of winter. We got huge storms that have been hitting us in south central Pennsylvania and other places in the state and nation as well. Let's talk about energy grid reliability, which is an important subject.
Oh, it's critically important, because if anyone can remember back just 2.5 short years ago to Valentine's Day in Texas, when their grid actually failed. You know, when the power goes out, people die. It's a serious, serious issue. And of course, when you talk about reliability, you also have to talk about affordability. And affordability, you want a growing economy, reliable, affordable energy is key to that. And what we're seeing right now, with a lot of push for intermittent sources of energy, you know, solar panels, windmills, they don't carry the same reliability that you have with, you know, our coal-fired plants, our gas plants, our nuclear. That's our baseload capacity. Every time probably last Christmas a year ago, first time I can remember, Pennsylvania, the #1 exporter of energy, electricity in the country, we're actually putting out warnings of rolling blackouts. We were in a mini polar vortex. Turn off your Christmas lights and your appliances, things like that. And so when we see policies that are forcing the premature closure of some of our major suppliers of energy to our grid, there's been multiple ones just this year alone in Pennsylvania. That hampers our ability that when you need energy, whether it's for a medical device or whether it's to heat your grandmother's home, no matter what it might be, it's got to be there. We recently,
aren't we the largest exporter of natural gas in the country, or is it next to Texas?
we have the biggest opportunities. We haven't fully embraced it. We're close to them. There's certainly been more investment in Ohio and West Virginia than there has been in Pennsylvania because of some of the regulatory uncertainty. Sure. And taxes. But the big thing, Terry, I want to point out, since the last time we talked, is that the Commonwealth Court actually ruled that the former Governor Wolf's regional greenhouse gas initiative, right. It was an $800 million carbon tax, should have gone through the General Assembly. Right. Governor Shapiro has appealed this now under the guise of protecting executive power. The bottom line is this: any Pennsylvanian who cares about grid reliability or energy costs, do you think it's good to have a 40%, this is their own analysis, a 40% increase across the board in energy costs for a 0.3% reduction in carbon? Okay.
All right, when we run to a break and we come back, I want to talk about avian flu. It's here. It's not going away. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, avian flu, it has not gone away. In fact, Senator Martin is expanding.
Well, we had last spring, we were actually able to get it under control because it had grown to be a problem. Unfortunately, we had our first case up in Northumberland County just about 2 weeks ago, and these are very hard to contain. It can destroy farmers' complete livelihood and their flocks, millions of birds, but the economic impact is tremendous. And so this is the second year we've been able to put about $25 million worth of resources to help with that mitigation, right. To do it timely. But we're also trying to do, using a portion of that money to create a response task force to make sure we have the equipment and the personnel ready to go when these things happen because of how quickly it spreads. We can't have other states saying, or countries, that they're not going to take Pennsylvania poultry or eggs because of this. So that's why
a huge part of our economy.
Absolutely. #1 ag in Pennsylvania, certainly #1 in Lancaster County. Right. But it's a good issue that I'd say that they're seeing good cooperation between the administration and the Senate Republicans on trying to find a resolution to help our farmers and keep this pathogen under control.
Yeah. Well, it's an important subject, and I'm glad that you folks are working together, Democrats and Republicans, on it.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about something that you're intimately familiar with as chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and let's talk about education, its funding. It's a hugely important topic. It gets a lot of media coverage. What's the situation with our funding?
Well, certainly this week they're waiting for the Basic Education Funding Commission to vote on some recommendations. And of course, obviously, the General Assembly is the one that has to take action. You have a side that wants us to add right off the bat $6.2 billion all the way up to $10 billion to do it. Then you have folks that really want to add some accountability into the system. When they filed that lawsuit, the Department of Education was spending about $11 billion.
$11 billion.
$11 billion. Today, where we're at now, it's about $17.2 billion. What I believe we really need to focus on are what are the outcomes? Are these kids proficient in reading and math and science? And sadly, some of the schools where we spend the incredible amount of the most resources at per student, we're also getting the worst results. So money isn't always the option, and that's why we work on things like EITC, the tax credit program. Kids have opportunities to go to charters if they go to unsafe schools, perhaps. But the answer will not be as simple.
It's a complicated subject. It has many moving parts.
No, and if anyone is out there saying the answer is solely about money, as the guy that oversees the budget on our side of the chamber, that's not a 100% easiest solution to begin with, adding that kind of burden to taxpayers. But if the taxpayers are investing, which they are, they should expect to see reasonable results.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent my entire career in education. 3 years after I graduated from Millersville University, I was back there teaching.
Yeah.
So and I understand how complicated the subject is and how important. It's extremely important. You can't overestimate the significance of all aspects of education.
That's right. If we can get it right along their childhood development, it lifts them and gives them a pathway to a successful life in society. If we don't get it right, we all know the costs that we pay on the other side for those who don't receive the quality education.
There's a huge cost if we don't get a quality of it. We'll pay in other ways. Yeah. All right, we don't have a lot of time left. Overall, the state budget seems to be in good shape. Governor Shapiro did not recommend tax hike. Go ahead.
No, well, I mean, here's the thing. We've gotten upgraded by Moody's, Fitch, and S&P, which has led to some savings on debt reauthorization. But the message I want to say, we went from being one of the worst states in the country in terms of money in reserve. We had 2 hours worth of funding, now to being in the middle of the pack. But what the Commonwealth has right now is a problem is that our spending is rapidly outpacing our revenues, which are very volatile in this environment. And so if we cannot correct that, the answer can't be just dip into your rainy day fund, because then you have a bigger hole the following year. So we have to do the work to ensure that the precious resources that we're put responsibility over are used in the best way, and we got to quit going back to the taxpayers. We certainly get enough money out of them.
Yeah, well, it's extremely important, and what's really helpful this year is that we've had money in the accounts, in the budget accounts, and there was no discussion of any tax hikes. I want to thank you for coming on the program. You're welcome. You have an assignment. Keep us informed.
I will. It's always a pleasure.
All right. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, you stay well.